Hi Mission Valley kids! Welcome to week 8 on our study of James. I hope you guys have really enjoyed our study so far and really been learning a lot about how you can live out your faith in your life. Today we will be studying James 5. This is the last chapter in the book of James. In this passage, James talks about the second coming of Christ. We believe Jesus came to earth about 2,000 years ago to save man from sin. Even though he's God, he came to earth as a human and lived a perfect life without any sin. When he died upon the cross, he became our Savior to save us from those sins. We also believe that Jesus will come to earth again. The first time he came as a Savior, but the second time he will come as a judge. In this passage, James is giving us 2 warnings of things we need to remember with the second coming of Christ. The first warning is to rich unbelievers, and the second warning are to Christians like you and me. So let's read this passage. Starting at verse 1, it says, "You rich people, listen, cry and be very sad because of the troubles that will come to you. Your riches will rot, and your clothes will be eaten by moths. Your gold and silver will rust, and your rust will be proof that you were wrong. It will eat your bodies like fire. You saved your treasure for the last days. Men worked in your fields, but you did not pay them. They harvested your crops and are crying out against you. Now the Lord of Heaven's armies has heard their cries. Your life on earth was full of rich living. You pleased yourself with everything you wanted. You made yourselves fat like an animal ready to be killed. You showed no mercy to the innocent man. You murdered him. He cannot stand against you." Have you ever been jealous of someone because they seem to have a lot of money or a lot of great possessions? Maybe they always have a new iPhone or an iPad or always have new clothes on. Sometimes it's easy to be jealous of people that seem to have a lot of things. If you've ever felt this way, then you feel similar to Tracy, the girl who we got a letter from this week. Why don't we read that letter right now? It says, "Dear Mission Valley kids, I am a Christian and try to treat everyone the way Jesus tells us we should. Why does it seem like it doesn't matter how I act? Some of the rich kids in our school are selfish and mean. They always seem to get everything their way. Life doesn't seem to be fair. The rich come out on top no matter how they act. What does God have to say about the rich who don't love him? Signed, Treated Unfairly, Tracy." Tracy asks a good question. Life doesn't seem very fair sometimes, because sometimes there's people who are mean and don't love God who seem to have a lot of really great things. Well, in this passage of James, we learn what God has to say about the rich who don't love him. Let's look at it a little bit closer. In this passage, James is giving a warning to the rich that they need to cry and be sad for the trouble that's coming their way. And this trouble will come with the second coming of Christ. As we mentioned earlier, when Christ comes the second time, he is going to come as a judge. He will be judging all of us for the things that we've done in this life. The problem with the rich who don't believe in God, who put their trust in the earthly possessions they have, he says that their riches will rot, that their clothes will be eaten by moths, and their gold and silver will rust away. So all these things that the rich have been putting their hope in, like material possessions and wealth, it doesn't last once Jesus comes again. So sometimes it might be easy to be envious or jealous of the rich because of the things that they have. But in this passage, we learn that it doesn't really matter what we have here on earth because it won't last anyways. And because of that, instead of putting our hope in the things that we have here on earth, we need to put our hope in Jesus Christ. This is what James' second warning is about in this passage. Let's read on. It says, "Brothers, be patient until the Lord comes again. A farmer is patient. He waits for his valuable crop to grow from the earth. He waits patiently for those to receive the first rain and the last rain. You too must be patient. Do not give up hope. The Lord is coming soon. Brothers, do not complain against each other. If you do not stop complaining, you will be judged guilty, and the judge is ready to come. Brothers, follow the example of the prophets who spoke for the Lord. They suffered many hard things, but they were patient. We say they are happy because they were able to do this. You have heard about Job's patience. You know after all his troubles, the Lord helped him. This shows that the Lord is full of mercy and is kind. So while the first part of this passage is a warning to the rich about not putting their hope in the things they have here on earth, this part of the passage is a warning to us as believers about what we are supposed to do. The key word in this passage is the word patience. We talked about patience a little bit earlier in our study. Patience is the ability to remain calm and not become annoyed or angry when waiting for a long time or when dealing with difficult situations or difficult people. So what James is telling us in this passage is that even though life may not seem very fair sometimes, that the mean rich seem to have all the good things, we need to remain patient because God will judge us in the end. So he tells us that we are not supposed to complain, but we're supposed to remain patient. And he gives the example of Job. Do you guys know who Job is? Job was a character in the Old Testament who was put through some difficult tests. Even though he loved God and served him and was faithful to him, he was still tested. All of his things here on earth, his family, his possessions, his wealth, even his health were taken away from him. But through it all, he remained faithful to God. And in this passage, James is telling us that we need to be patient like Job, because even though things on this earth can be taken away, or even though people who seem to have a lot of things but are mean, still have a lot of wealth, we need to be patient because God will be the one who rewards us in the end. James tells us that even after all of Job's troubles, God still helped him. And the key to remember is that this shows us that the Lord is full of mercy and is kind. So we need to remain faithful and be patient because God will bless us in the end. So before we finish our study today, let's talk a little bit about what advice and what encouragements we can give to Tracy. All right, I'll see you guys next week for our last study on the book of James. Have an awesome week.